What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Palantir stock, ticker symbol PLTR, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Monday, March 11th. Alright guys, Palantir stock here on Friday finished the day down 42 cents a share. That's minus 1.59%. It is down about another 20 cents or so after hours here. But listen, whether it's in your favor or going against your current sentiment, as always, 99% of the time, unless there's a business-specific catalyst in the after hours or something of that nature driving volume, driving the move, volume is incredibly low. That's about 99% of the time the case, so take it with a grain of salt. It's very easy to bully stocks, or pump them for that matter, on low volume after hours. So let's get started here with our daily ritual, our volume profile analysis on what I think is the absolute best chart, best time frame to do that on, the 5-minute. Listen, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. My goal by Monday market open is to have 4,000 subs. I think we can certainly get there, but definitely not without your help. So I appreciate you jumping aboard. Also, make sure to jump down in the comment section and cast your vote for Monday's wildcard stock that I will be covering. Whichever ticker gets the most votes across the weekend's batch of videos will be the wildcard stock that I cover come Monday. So make sure to just comment the ticker, the company name, either one works, and your vote will be counted. So, looking at the volume profile here, you guys know what I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for obvious changes in volume that correlate with the obvious moves in the underlying, so the stock. But it has to be looked at through the lens of, okay, is that out of context for that time of day? Which we want it to be out of context to tell us something, because then it tells us that, okay, it looks like an outsized sample size agreed that stock belonged either higher or lower at that particular time of day compared to what is normal during that time of day. So really, here on Palantir from Friday, what I'm mostly interested in this downside move here, that was really the majority of what was given, the vast majority of what was given up here today. The stock was actually up in the morning, and then that big fade essentially made up for the entirety of the downside move on the day, and then we actually saw a lot of consolidation into the close, which is not a bad thing to see. So if we compare the volume on that move, we take a look, you can see here it's actually blending in quite well. It's very choppy. Listen, of course we have a little bit of peaks here, but you guys know I like to see at least 3 or 4 consecutive, consistently high 5-minute bars in terms of volume in order to determine that more of a definitive opinion by a larger sample size of the market. And we're just not seeing that here on Palantir on that downside move. It just isn't there. So bears, I apologize. I wish I had better news, but it's just not really there on the volume profile here today. It just blends in very choppy. Now, let's take a look at self-fulfilling prophecy psychological levels, highly important levels that I'm paying close attention to come Monday's trading day. So you can see here that we did officially kind of give up that 50 period here on the 30-minute chart on Friday. You guys remember on Thursday, we had closed making a test of that and then faded below in the after hours. But after hours, we always have to take with a grain of salt, right? Again, the volume is very low. That was the case as well on Thursday. We reclaimed it here in the pre-market and then faded intraday, closing well below inside of this channel here. So, come Monday, this 30-minute chart is relatively simple here. If I'm a bull, any downside tests at all of that 200 period moving average, which is approximately a 2% away, a 2% move to the downside away, I'm going to want to see that hold on high volume, but the bounce should be on high volume, right? The test itself can be on lower volume, average volume, or even higher volume, but I want the pull away, the bounce, to be on higher volume. Now, the ideal objective, if you're a bull, that's more like the downside protection. The ideal objective is a 2.5% upside move to reclaim that 50 period here on the 30-minute chart in particular. But we'd have to, of course, get up through there and then ideally see a low volume pullback and then a hard high volume bounce. Now, bears, you guys, again, very simple. Any upside test, 2.5% move or so up to that 50 period. Going to want to see any volume on the retest. I don't really mind, but a higher volume, above average volume rejection off of that 50 period. But your primary goal on Monday is to break downside through the 200 period and either continue going, or ideally, I always like to see retests and confirmations. So a hard high volume break, that low volume, maybe a little bit slower retest, and then hard high volume rejection. Okay, that's a hard claim of that 200 period as a resistance level, at least in the very short term. Now, let's move on here to the 4-hour chart and take a look, see if this is contextual here, and it certainly is. If we take a look, you can see here that that 50 period is currently approximately a 3.65-ish, maybe 3.7% downside move away. But listen, we've seen crazier things out of Palantir here. So bulls, two things that I'm looking at here come Monday on the 4-hour chart in particular. That 50 period, I would ideally love to see that thing get above that huge psychological level that we've been taking a look at lately of 25 bucks a share. That helps to kind of beef up that level. Adds another psychological barrier ahead of that level. Bears, you want to see that thing flatten out. Ideally just below 25 bucks a share, but it is now kind of coming down to the wire. And, you know, bears also a downside break and close beneath that 50 period would be beautiful. Bulls, whether we see a retest and a hard high volume pull away or just a close above that 50 period in general. I mean, listen, guys, honestly, for me, sideways, a little bit red, a little bit green, big green. To me, it's all kind of a shorter term win looking at the next few days on Palantir from the context of like that 50 period and the $25 psychological level are essentially lining up here on the 4-hour chart. And my primary concern here is I don't want to give up that level. Because that, I think, a lot of bears would look at that as a relatively big win, at least in the near term, a way to discourage some bulls in the short term. So that's really what you're looking at on the 4-hour on both sides. But the daily chart is always going to paint the most contextual, most obvious picture. And 25, of course, comes back into play. You can see here that this will not include after hours movement. So again, it's about 23 cents lower here in the after hours, but the close was just above 26 bucks. So listen, bulls, again, any downside test, you know, like what's the obvious story here on the daily, right? Any downside test at 25 bucks a share, I'm going to want to see that hold. Again, a high volume bounce if we test it. Listen, I don't mind if it goes to 24.95. It's not to the exact penny. I think that's a big misunderstanding that a lot of people look at TA as like, it's an exact penny science. I'm always looking at this as somewhat of a range that's contextual to the price of the stock. For example, those ranges typically get a little bit wider the more expensive, quote unquote, the higher price a stock is. But that's the downside concern, bulls. What about the upside, right? Well, from the closing price today, Friday here, up to that recent high of about 27.50, it's about a 5.6% move. I mean, again, we've seen crazier things here out of Palantir. I'm looking at that as a potential region. That'd be a beautiful thing to reclaim as a bull. But again, understand that would require a little bit more volatile day, and perhaps a catalyst. But realistically, considering the close here at about 26.04, a close above 26, just holding off 25 and kind of holding another round number in between us and that highly crucial level of 25 bucks a share, I'll look at that, and I'm kind of happy with that in the short term as a bull come Monday. Bears, your smaller goal come Monday is just I would say more confirmation on the break of 26, considering that has now happened after hours, and we always have to take after hours with a grain of salt because volume is so much lower. But the primary objective come Monday is really a crack down below 25 bucks a share. And if you're able to, now, again, I think a lot of people kind of misunderstand when I say that. I don't mean it cracks below for 15 minutes and then bounces back up, and all of a sudden it's like, well, what happened, you know? I'm talking about an actual confirmation of a bigger macro levels take a little bit of time. They take more volume to pour in to really confirm. The name of the game here really is context. So a close beneath 25 and then a continuation of that close beneath 25, even maybe a retest and a fade off 25 come Tuesday. That's kind of the bearish objective. That all starts here with ideally cracking down below 25. Ideally, if you're a bear, I suppose, on Monday. Now, IV, implied volatility here. If we take a look, it is falling. So understand that the lower IV goes, the more favorable those conditions become for some new options buyers to come in and purchase up some calls and puts. Obviously, not only looking to be correct directionally and outrun their theta decay, but also if they're looking for a potential return to equilibrium out of IV, which benefits call and put buyers right through the Greek Vega. You, of course, still need to be directionally correct and outrun theta, but the Greeks, understand all of them, not just delta and theta. Now, time for my favorite part of the video here. What was the bias out of the options traders here today in the chain. 601,000 total contracts traded. And again, a relatively heavy bias on Palantir here today. 436,000 calls, 165,000 puts. That's the overall ratio. Heavy call side bias on the overall ratio. But what I'm primarily concerned with is that 0 to 20 short-term speculator delta range. 113,000 calls, about 64,000 puts. And on top of that, for the, I don't know how many days in a row here, every single delta range. Out of the money, at the money, and in the money. On average, it's going to be a shorter-term speculative bet, more of a mid-term sentiment, and a longer-term sentiment. All 5 of those delta ranges leaning call heavy. Listen, before you head out, don't forget to cast your vote. Which ticker would you like to see the wildcard stock covered on Monday? And hey, if you got value out of this video and you have not done so yet, please subscribe to the channel. Help us reach our goal here, 4,000 by market open on Monday. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one.